All right, we are live. And today is voting day for those watching at home. Yes. So,
I will be making voting pie or voting pizza.
we might. But anyhow, today we're going to be continuing with our fractions, and we're going to be looking at how to find common denominators. In our last lesson, we had a very similar approach. We were looking to find the least common multiple. Do you guys remember that? Least common multiple? Well, guess what? Common denominators, you're going to be doing the same steps. All right, so our goal for today is how can you find common denominators for fractions with unlike denominators? Gasp. All right, well, when Kai comes back, he'll have to, we'll see him with this problem in the next group.
I will be like, woo!
Kai's mom baked him a special batch of homemade brownies for his birthday.
Wow.
All right, we're listening. Thank you.
Wait, homemade?
Okay, let me share again. Apologize. He promised to share half of the brownies with his friends and reserve a third of the brownies to share with his teachers. That's me. How should Kai cut the brownies to make sure he splits the brownies between his friends and his teachers? So you may use your whiteboard and you can draw out how the brownie sheet should look. How do you think Kai should cut this so he can make sure that he saves half of the brownies for his friends and a third of the brownies for his teachers? How would you cut your tray of brownies? When you're done, you can also, since you're so good at drawing after our 60-second sketch this morning, share your brownie pan on your whiteboard. Hold it up and let's see, how would you cut it? Okay. Interesting. Interesting. I see some people getting very close or warm. Interesting. All right. I don't see everybody's brownie pan.
I'm holding mine.
Interesting. All right, so some of us are going to be very, very fair about this with the brownies. And many of you got very close with how you would cut your brownie pan. So the goal is, if we're cutting these brownies, and one is going to be out of a half, meaning out of 2 pieces, and one is going to be a third, meaning out of 3 pieces, we're going to have to figure out a common number of pieces to split the entire brownie pan into so that everything is equal and we make sure that we don't have too much of one size versus the other. We want everything to be the same size. So that being said, normally we have, right, a half of the pan would look something like this. And a third of the pan would look something like this, cutting it into thirds, right? Give or take, depending on which direction your pan is. So our goal is, how are we going to cut this entire brownie pan to make sure that both of these measurements are represented correctly? Well, what we're going to have to do is convert or change our fractions into fractions that have the same denominator. Currently, our first set of brownies is 1 out of 2, which means I would cut my entire brownie pan into 2 pieces. And my next set of brownies are 1 out of 3, which means I would cut my brownie into 3 pieces. That's not going to work because the pieces are obviously going to be very different sizes. So what we're going to be doing is finding a common denominator. We want to change the amount of pieces we're cutting to the same amount. It's not 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3. We want to find an amount that we can cut it into where we can make sure that all our pieces are equal. So in that case, we're going to look at the denominator. We have a 2 and a 3. And just like in our last lesson, we're going to find the common multiples. So I wrote them out for you, but we just did this. So hopefully you remember your multiples are basically your times tables. So the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, so on and so on. The multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12. Does anybody see 2 multiples that are in common?
6.
All right, that's correct. 6. Both 2 and 3 have a common multiple of 6, meaning if I were to cut my brownie pan into 6 pieces, I could still find an equivalent fraction for 1/2. I would just be cutting it a little bit differently. So what I want to do now that I'm going to cut my brownie pan into 6 pieces. I found my common multiple, which means I found my common denominator. I want to make sure that I find the equivalent. So now that my brownie pan is in 6 pieces, what would half of that be? When we're finding that equivalent fraction and we're changing the denominator, how much would half of 6 be now if I cut it in 6? 3. What you just did mentally, 5th graders, is you renamed your fraction. It's the same amount, a half and 3 out of 6 are the same amount, but you are cutting it differently. So that's called renaming the fraction. So here we go. We have 1/2, and now we want to figure out how many a half would be out of the 6 pieces. We have 1/3, and we want to figure out how much a third would be out of 6 pieces. Very doable. And the beautiful part is all the pieces will be the same size. There are 6 equal pieces. So let's take a look at our first set of fractions. And this is how many of you did it mentally because I gave you smaller, more common fractions, but I'm going to show you the steps regardless in case you get larger fractions. So first thing you always look at is the denominator. Just like remember with division, you always look at the divisor. Well, the denominator is the divisor. Okay, so you're looking at it again, first thing. 2 is our original denominator. Now we're looking at pieces that are cut into 6. How do I get from 2 to 6? There's only 2 operations we use for fractions.
Add 4.
There's only 2 operations we use when we change fractions. Multiplication or division, guys. So what do we multiply?
Multiply 2 times 3.
Times 3. Whatever you do to your denominator,
You must do to your
numerator. So 1 times 3 is
3.
So there you go. You already had guessed it. 3/6 is the same. Can everybody agree 3/6 is the same as 1/2?
Yeah.
Yes, it's cut differently, but it's the same exact amount. If I took my brownies and I cut it into 3/6 instead of 1/2, I would still have the same amount of brownies. Same thing on 1/3. We're going to look at the denominator first. How many times does 3 go into 6?
Twice.
Twice. So we have to do
Base
times 2.
Times 2.
Whatever I do to my denominator,
You must do to your
I do
numerator.
my numerator. 1 times 2 is
2.
2.
So does everybody agree that 2/6 is the same amount as 1/3?
Yes.
Yes, it's just cut differently, but it's the same amount altogether out of the original brownie pan. So looking at our brownies again, there's our original 1/2 and our original 1/3. Let's see visually what that would look like in 6. So we said 1/2 was the same as 3/6. Now I'm going to cut that half into 6. Do you see how, look at the brown area. Do you see how it's still the same amount? It's just instead of 1 big piece, it's 3 smaller pieces, but it's the same amount out of the whole. Same thing with 1/3. We said 1/3 was the same as 2/6. All right, let's cut it into 6. And as you could see, do you see that the brown area is still the same amount, except instead of 1 larger piece, there are 2 smaller pieces, but it is representing the same amount of the brownie pan. So what is our common denominator? Cutting that brownie into 6 pieces will help me equally find how much is going to be for, in Kai's case, how much of the brownies go to his friends and how many go to his teachers. So in this case, three sections of this he would cut off for his friends, and 2 sections here would be cut off for his teachers, which leaves 1 section for him. There you go. The extra one is for him. All right.
One for Kai. That's nice.
That was, yes, very nice. I made sure in the problem I left a slice for him because that would have been weird if I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be mad.
But Miss Velez,
Yes.
so what I did is I cut it into fourths.
Okay.
So
Let me see your board.
The teachers get 1/4, and then the friends get 2/4.
But those fourths would be a little bit different in size. It wouldn't quite be equal sizes to the 1/3 because you couldn't use thirds there. You wouldn't be able to get a third from a fourth. I saw someone with a 12th. I think it was, I want to say it was Soren.
You're showing something. But
was I right, Soren? I think Soren that you cut yours into 12ths originally. Was it you? I swore it was you that held up the board. Someone cut theirs into 12 pieces, and I was pretty impressed. You could use something like cutting it into 12ths. I know someone did. They're just being shy about it because I saw it before. But you could do something like 12ths because even though they're smaller pieces, 12 could be an equivalent fraction, right? We could have a common denominator with a 12 and a 3 and a 4. So you could cut it into 12ths also. The beautiful thing about finding equivalent fractions in something like this, where you're renaming your fraction, is it doesn't have to be the least. It could be any denominator they have in common. But to that point, we always are going to be simplifying our answers. So it's better always to find your least common denominator, or your LCD. Okay, which is the same as how we did LCM, least common multiple. Now it's least common denominator. So let's take a look together on page 232. And we're going to look at 2 sets of fractions and see how to split it. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see my board okay today. All right. Let's take 2/3 and 3/4. So I'm going to write both of my fractions. You're writing along with me in your notebook. 2/3, 3/4. Everybody knows that anything out of fourths is a quarter, right? You all know that? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes,
I don't want you to get mixed up every time I'm saying quarters. A quarter, and if you quarter something, that means you're splitting it into 4s. If it's hard for you to remember, you could remember that 4 quarters make $1.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why it's out of 4. Okay.
Is that why it's called a quarter? Because it's out of
It's out of 4, yeah. All right, guys. So 2/3 and 3/4. Just like in division, remember that these are all division problems. 2 out of 3 is the same as 2 divided by 3. 3 out of 4 is the same as 3 divided by 4, right? The bottom number, the denominator, is the same as the divisor, right? And so these are the different ways. 2/3 is the same as 2 divided by 3, which is the same as 2. It gets on top, it goes inside the house. It's on bottom, it goes outside the house. 2 divided by 3. Those are all the different ways to write our fraction. So if you consider that, you know that your number that's on the bottom, down denominator, is going to be the same as your divisor. And guess what? Just like before, my eyes always immediately go to my divisor. So I have I'm going to look at both of my fractions at the same time, and my divisor is a 3 and a 4. For now, I am not looking at my numerator. I just want to make sure that out of my whole, I'm cutting fractions, right? I'm cutting pieces that are the same amount and the same size. So right now, if I was going back with my brownies, this brownie is cut in thirds. This brownie is cut in quarters. I want to make sure that all my sizes are even. And right now I'm going to have to change my denominator and find a denominator that's common between both. So I have 3 and I have 4. Which denominator, think back to your LCM, which denominator should I look at first, the 3 or the 4?
Bigger one.
The bigger one, which is the
And
4.
also
So I'm
the
going to
12.
list, for 4, I'm going to list all of my multiples. 4. Anything in common with 3 yet?
No.
No. 8. Anything in common with 3 yet?
No.
12.
Yes.
Yes. And if I did that for my 3, it would be 3, 6, 9, 12, and that's my common denominator. Woot, woot. So 12, guess what? I'm going to have to cut my brownie pan or whatever it is, whatever I'm splitting, into 12ths. So here we go. 12, 12. That is my new denominator. Does everybody see where I got the 12? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that I have 12s, I can't, it's almost like, you know how I said we renamed the fraction? It's almost like it has a new last name. This was the thirds family. This was the quarters family. Now they're both the 12ths family. No, nobody. Okay, cool. All right. So the 12ths family, we've renamed them. Maybe these fractions were married. Now they all have the same name, something like that.
What?
All right. So we have the 12ths family. I need to make sure that I rename my fraction by finding an equivalent. How did I get from 3 all the way to 12? Remember, only multiplication or division when you find equivalent fractions. Times 4. Well, remember that fractions are division problems. If I alter this number by multiplying by 4, the divisor, I'm going to also have to alter my numerator. They're directly related, or else I'm not finding an equivalent. Equivalent means the same. If I multiplied my denominator by 4, I have to also multiply my numerator by 4, or else it's not equal, not equivalent. So 2 times 4 is 8. All right, so does everybody agree 8/12 is the same as 2/3?
Yeah.
Yes, if I were to actually cut it, I would see that they would represent the same amount out of my total. They would just be cut a little differently. Let's look at 3/4. Again, look at your denominator first. How do I get from 4 to 12?
Times 3.
Times 3. Whatever I do to my denominator,
You must do your numerator.
you do to your numerator. How do I get from 3 over here? We're going to have to multiply by 3. 3 times 3 is? 9. So what's my common denominator? The denominator they share. 12. What are my renamed fractions?
9/12 and
8
8/12 and 9/12. Yay.
Wait, are we gonna start adding fractions?
Next lesson. It's going to be the same exact thing, except we're going to then add them.
Okay, because
Tomorrow's lesson is identical, except that after we're done, we're going to take the 2 renamed fractions and add them. That's the only difference. Yeah. All right. Let's try another one. Yes. Okay. 1/6. Wait, didn't we do that? No.
No.
I want to do 3/8 and 2/3. That one's better. 3/8, 2/3. What's the first number I look at in both of my fractions?
3/8.
The denominator.
Denominator.
Oh,
Circle my
yes.
denominator.
3/8.
Circle my denominator. Should I look at the 8 or the 3 first?
8.
8. Always look at the bigger one. 8. Let's start listing the multiples. 8. 16. You
16.
stop me when you hear one in common.
24.
24.
Stop.
Wait,
Stop. 24
Stop.
is also in the 3 times table. 3, 6,
6,
9,
9,
12,
12,
15.
15,
Fifteen.
21,
24.
Wait. You skipped 18.
I did.
Oh no!
Gasp.
no. Or cheat.
Yeah.
way.
Sabotage.
21.
Sabotage 02.
Emergency meeting.
My bad.
Someone sabotaged.
Now, guys,
Please,
do you
sabotage.
also see that if you remember I told you one trick for finding equivalent is that you can also multiply both denominators, right? 8 times 3 is 24. So you could always, if you can't think of something right away, you could always, it's always an option. It'll always be correct if you multiply your two denominators. I still like, I mean, in this case it worked out, but sometimes you could get a number that's way smaller, right? Your goal is always to get your simplest possible splitting of something, right? I don't want to break things into 24s. I want to break things into a smaller amount, right? Because it's more manageable. In this case, unfortunately, 24 is the smallest amount that we can find in common between these two. So unfortunately, 24 it is. All right, let's rename our fractions. We have, you mind if I erase the multiples here, guys?
Yes.
You remember it's 24, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to change 24 will be my new name. We went from the 8th family and the 3rd family. We've joined families, so everyone is the 24th family. All right, 24th family.
Right.
How will I be renamed? Well, let's see how we get from our denominator to our new denominator.
Times 3.
There you go.
You
Times
must do
3.
it to your numerator.
Whatever I do to my denominator,
Your
your
numerator.
your
numerator.
numerator. 3 times 3 is? 9.
9.
All right, same thing here. How do I get from 3 to 24?
8.
8?
Yeah.
Times 8.
Oh, times 8.
Do you know what I meant?
Well, here's the thing. Whenever you give instructions, especially in math, you need to tell your operation. That's like if you said, "Oh, how do I get to Safeway?" And I said, "Left."
Yeah.
Or like,
mate.
left where? Or if I said street, you'd be like,
mate.
"What street? What do I do on the street?" So,
Right.
so don't just say,
Follow the street.
"No,
and
what
you
you mean
turn
by
left.
8? Add 8, subtract 8, multiply by 8.
You
8,
know what
8.
I meant.
All right,
7. Cars. 16.
exactly. Don't just
69.
numbers out at me.
420.
I deserve better than
16.
that. All right.
605 million.
What do I do with the 2?
8.
Do times it by 8.
8.
Oh, times 8.
8.
Thank you for the
16
clear
times
instructions that I deserve.
16.
2 times 8 is?
16.
16.
All right. We have renamed our fraction. So let me ask you, what's my least common denominator? My LCD. 24.
Stop, you're triggering
What are my 2 renamed fractions?
9, 24,
16,
24.
Beautiful. Created a new
Beautiful.
word.
Beautiful.
Maybe that'll catch on.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Oh gosh, what is going on?
Wait,
with me
that's
this
the new
morning?
word that we could invent.
I know,
Yeah,
right? Beautiful.
No.
I don't know where that came out from, guys. I don't know what's going on.
Zach.
All right,
No,
so-
Zach rhymes with carrot.
You're a carrot.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do another one. And
Zach
I
rhymes
think
with
we're
carrot.
confident with this. 3/7, 1/2. Do this one on your own in your notebooks. When you're done, hold up your notebooks. Go. And then I need someone who can give clear directions,
Wait, I need to go get a pencil.
clear directions to guide me on how to solve this. With clear directions. Solve it on your own first, and then I'm looking out to see who can tell me. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? By the way, guys, I did bring something to split fraction wise, and I did make it patriotic. I did not have brownies, but I made red Jello.
Ooh.
Oh my God, it smells so good.
Put it in your bath.
Well,
Yummy.
Put it in your bath.
this was something I was going to split for fractions, but
No,
No, put it in your
maybe
bath.
I'll just eat the whole thing as one whole.
No, put it in a bath. It'll be really cool.
I
Oh.
found it.
All right, who's got my answer?
Me.
Who's got some clear directions for me?
I have
Not me.
directions.
All right, Lucy, you've got some clear directions? All right,
Yeah.
let's spotlight you, and you're gonna guide me. All right, I'm
Okay.
writing on my board, guys.
I'll do it. I did it in my notebook, but I'll do it on here so you guys can see it. So first you gotta write it down, but you probably already did that. So
Okay,
yeah.
I'm following. You're telling me what to do, and I'm writing it on the board,
7.
guys. And if she doesn't give any clear directions, I don't know what to
like
do.
this.
All right, I wrote 3 7s and 1/2. What do I do next?
Now you have to find the common denominator. So, but you always start with the bigger number, which is 7 in this case. So then you have to find the multiples of 7. So the multiples of 7 of 7, 14. Oh wait, stop. 14 is in the 2 times table.
Correct.
All right. I'm gonna take a cheat here, and I'm just gonna write ... 14.
Yeah, because we did
No,
Exactly
I
right.
don't want to write 7 multiples out. Okay.
Yeah, you don't.
Okay.
fine.
Well,
We
you know, that's
I
I have that
know it's
option
all
because
about me.
Lucy made sure she told me I started with my bigger number. So since I started with my bigger number, I saved myself a whole lot of time because I would have had to write
So
7
we all
multiples out.
it's
All
like a bunch of times, so because it's like times 7. So now we have to we know that we're gonna when we write it new, the denominator is gonna be 14, but we don't know what to do with the
What is that called when we write the fraction with the new denominator?
New denominator.
What is that called?
It's called
Rename fraction.
What is that called?
new denominator.
No.
Denominator new? Hippity hoppity, there's a denominator on my property.
Clue.
Yeah.
I feel like
So at
I'm
least the LCM.
Anime.
These common.
really 2 letters down.
Least common denominator.
EA Sports.
Oh my goodness, rename, guys. Oh my gosh, what is going on?
Yeah, I'm gonna rename
Rename.
my
Nobody.
I said that. I said
All right.
renamed fractions.
Okay.
but
Thank
you
you.
muted.
All right, Lucy is continuing to teach me. I'm going to erase my multiples for now. So now
Lucy
I'm
the teacher.
renaming my fraction. Lucy, what's my next step?
So now since you did first, we're gonna start with the 3 7s, but since you had to do 7 times 2 to get 14, you have to do the same thing to your numerator. So you have to do 3 times 2, which is 6.
How the tables have turned.
So now your first one is 6/14, but now you have to find the second one. So then we know that 2 times 7 is because we literally just did it here. Because if you did 7
Yeah.
times 2, you get 14. So
Good.
it's 7, and then you have to do 7 times 1, which is 7.
And what are
And
my
then,
two renamed my two renamed fractions are?
6/14 and 7/14.
That's what I got.
Wow.
Excellent.
Sure, how the tables have turned.
All right, 5th graders. How are we feeling about this?
Not good.
Are we confident with this? We can do this on
No.
our own?
Yes.
No.
All right, so
Zachary
what I
rhymes
will
with
do,
Yeah.
I will
true.
stick
Yeah, it
around.
does.
If anyone wants me to do another one and practice with you, I will stick around. But I just want you to take a quick peek if you have your workbook in front of you. If not, I'll explain.
Yeah.
For today, for the assignment I gave out, I am looking at numbers. I will be correcting numbers 9 to 16 in your workbook because numbers 1 to 8 only ask for the common denominator and does not ask for you to rename the fractions. So if you look at numbers 9 through 16 in your book, it's going to be exactly what we did here. You're going to get 2 fractions. You're going to have to give me 3 answers for each. Before you say, huh? What?
30 answers. Wow.
Listen, it's the same exact thing that we did here. The first answer is, what is the common denominator? So in this one, the common denominator was 14. The second question, what is the first renamed fraction? 6/14.
6/14.
And the third answer, what is the
14.
7/14. So you're writing 3 things for each of your homework questions. You're going to give me first the common denominator, and then you're going to give me renamed fraction number 1, renamed fraction number 2. So it's the same thing that we just did here. Does that make sense? I don't want anyone saying, I don't get it. How am I supposed to write it?
It doesn't give you any space to write it all.
That's why I gave you a space on Google Forms for you to write it. And you should do all the work for this, because look how much space it takes up. You should do all the work for this in your notebook, because there's not any space in the workbook to do it. All right?
They should make more space.
They really
yeah,
should, but that's why I
editing
made sure everybody got a
editing.
math workball so that you can do all your work there.
Wait, didn't you
All right,
say
guys.
you would limit the homework by 1 math homework a week, and then now we have 2?
Well, one was 5 questions each, so you're good.
Guys, did you know Zachary